Right, when I last spoke to you guys, I think I was on the banks of Rockford. It was May time, and I took most of the spring off to fish there. I mentioned to you that it had gone to an open ticket and it was quite busy. And the sole success I had was one single 39 pounder. For a lot of time, I probably fished maybe 30 nights for that. And after having it so good through the winter, it was quite disappointing. You know, the fish were moving, highly mobile, getting around the pit. And it was just really hard to stay in contact with them because of the amount of anglers present. I've worked most of the summer, not really done a lot of personal fishing. I went to Gigantica with the Corder lads on the Jolly trip. Wasn't there for the draw, but managed to come out second and drew Coast Point, which is one of the best swims on the lake. So I was over the moon with that. We all had a great time. Jake Wildball caught the Immaculate Common that hadn't been out for 4 years in the next peg to me. That was great. And I managed to catch a fish called the Galaxy. It's I think it was 63 pounds it was, which was absolutely awesome. You know, good session. I think I had 14 in total, a few 40s and quite a few nice scaly 30 pounders as well. Then I think the last week in September, going into October, I went to Graviers with a friend of mine, Gav. I call him Fat Gav because he's 18 stone and 6'3". We went to Graviers, and the scar was overly due. You know, really due out. And he'd been there before, I hadn't. You know, two pairs on the lake, you know, so we doubled up at one end and another pair doubled up at the other end. We came out first in the draw and we got the point, which is the most productive area generally. We scattered the rods up. Rather than he fished 4 over there and I fished 4 over here, we've mixed and matched so that we both have equal chance. And on the first night I had a 30 and I think he had a 30 or something. And then on the second night, he went and pulled out the big one, you know, the Scar, 93 pounds. It was a mad experience for me. I was on the bank, he was out in the boat playing it, and I was watching his head torch getting towed around for probably 20 minutes. And then I heard him chuckle to himself, and I said, is it a big one? And he said, yeah, it's one of the A team. And he's getting closer and closer as the torch came in. I was like, come on then, what is it? And he said, yeah, it's the Scar, 93 pounds, and it is literally bigger than a dog. You know, he's 18 stone, like I said, and he could barely pick it up. You know, the fish have to be kept in the water, so it's quite hard to get the leverage. And it was, yeah, just it's quite a surreal experience seeing a fish of that size. Obviously, blind panic set in. We didn't get the best shots in the world. We just got what we could, got it back, and yeah, it was a good session all in all. I caught a 62 pound leather shortly after that, and I think I had a 50 as well. I think for the week I ended up with 10 fish, mostly 30s. A couple of 40s, 150 and a 60, and he obviously had the big one and a couple of others. So all in all, it was a great trip. Right, going back to my UK fishing, the proper stuff. Worked all the way through the summer, all the way through the autumn, and just started going again in December. I was fortunate enough to get a Bundy's winter ticket, and done a few trips up there. And obviously, when you're new to a lake, I hadn't done any research. It took me a few weeks to sort of get into my mind where I needed to be, what I needed to be doing, and I lost my first 2 bites. My first trip, I got on some fish that were showing, cast to them. Took about a week for the lead to hit the bottom. It shredded off and the hook pulled immediately. And the same thing pretty much happened on my next trip, and I tweaked my rig slightly, which is very unlike me. But basically, I'd put a rig ring on a rig that I normally don't bother with, and I was using it in conjunction with a semi-buoyant bait, and the setup just didn't balance, and it resulted in those 2 losses. But changed back to the hinge stiff rig, the one that served me well at Rockford. Got on the fish, got into the middle hazel swim that had been doing all the bites, found a lovely clear bit of clay out on the bottom of the shelf, and in 48 hours I took 5 fish, biggest 35 pounds, and it was all looking good. We'd had mild weather through December, it was mild into early January, and it was all looking good. But that was fishing a bit later than it normally does. And the following trip, despite fishing in the same way, on the same spots, in the same swim, with the same tactics, with fish showing over me, nothing materialised for the first 24 hours. And I was sort of thinking that, yeah, maybe we've had our chances now. The water's fully cooled all the way through the column, and the fish have probably come up into the mid to upper layers. So I fished zigs for the remaining 24 hours on 2 rods. Didn't get anything, but I wasn't surprised that I didn't get anything. You know, you're working in 55 foot, there's a lot of water to cover there, and it's going to take a little bit of perseverance. Anyway, the following week I set out opposite the middle hazel swim, and just as I was flicking out my rigs, Ed Betteridge, he took a 19 pound common on a zig rig. So as soon as I saw him playing that, and I could see his little float glistening in the sunshine, it was enough for me. I was like, they're definitely off the bottom. So I put my zigs out into the middle. He packed up and left, and all night all I could hear was like thumping carp, just thumping out the water. I was like, but the ripples weren't making it back to my bank, and it's only like probably 170 yards across, so that makes the middle, what, 80, 90 yards away, and the rings just wasn't coming back to my side. That told me they're over on the far bank where I'd been catching from, and most of the activity that winter had came from the middle hazel swim. So I moved round there. The frost was as thick as you could imagine, like the wheelbarrow wasn't even crunching it, I was just riding over the top of it. The puddles and the ruts were just rock hard, and once I got to the swim and got rigged up, you couldn't even see the far bank. I couldn't even see where to cast, couldn't see a tree, couldn't see anything. So I rigged up, had a cup of tea, sat there, thought I'll wait for the mist to clear, but after the cup of tea I was sitting there thinking, well, if I haven't got a rod in the water, I haven't got a chance. And having fished that swim quite a few times, I know roughly the range to cast and roughly direction, so I wrapped them up round distant sticks, flicked the zigs out onto the clips and popped them up. I started at 6, 9 and 12 feet down, and for a couple of hours just sat there, nothing really doing, just had the bed chair out, a few still showing initially, and it slowly sort of petered out. So I've just thought I'll lower the deepest one from 12 to 15 foot. No reason, just other than I'll try it. Dropped it down, come back, sat on the bed, and in the time it took me to walk up the steps and come round, the tip was wobbling. At first I thought it was me knocking it, but then I can see it pulling down still, and there's a fish on the end. Run down the steps, got onto it. Immediately it'd gone through the other two lines. If you imagine you've got 40 foot of zig line coming off the bottom, it doesn't take a lot for a carp kiting from left to right to wipe out your other two sticks. So had all that going on. I was fishing really small hooks, really fine hook links, and at this time I wasn't really sure. There's so many fish in bundies, you know, it's not like you think you're going to have a whacker on the end every time, you know, there's a lot of doubles and a lot of 20s, there are quite a few 30s and quite a few 40s, but the odds are it'd probably be a 20 pounder. Anyway, with all the other tackle on, as it got to the bottom of the shelf, it started to grind to a halt, and I started to fear for it all going wrong, when suddenly both the other two lines that were connected to it just bobbed up, the floats just hit the surface, and I was in direct contact. From then on, it started to come up from the bottom up towards me, and as it came into view, it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was, without doubt, it was one of the big three. As soon as it got to the surface, I knew that. Threw the net out, pushed it over the top, pulled it over the top, sorry, and it turned out to be the original big one, which was 46 pounds, 12 ounces, and a hell of a result in January, especially for the first one on the zig rig, especially with the odds of that many other carp in there. So that sort of brings you up to date where we are now. I've been twice more since. I caught a 26 and a 17 on the second from last trip, and on the last trip I blanked. I think basically the depth had changed. I've been concentrating around the 15 foot mark, not really getting anything, and another angler, Jag Jim, has been fishing fairly close to where my baits are, and he's took a good run of fish, you know, quite a lot. It's actually made me feel quite useless at times, and just goes to show that you've got to keep adjusting those depths to stay in contact with them. As for the year ahead, I've got a few things in mind. I'm going to carry on bundies until the middle of March, because I love to catch the Carp World coverfish or the black common, either or any of the other 30s in there. You know, they're lovely old fish, they are. But after that, I've got a Burfield ticket. I'll have a little dabble on there, see how we go. Not going to take it too seriously. Got a lot of tuitions booked in through the early spring and summer, so I won't have that much time. But I'm going to have a go and just try and find my feet over there. It's going to be a bit of a long campaign, that one, and I don't think you're going to go over there and get it done too quickly. Other waters, I've got a Northey Park ticket, which is in Peterborough. Again, I'm not going to go on there too early. I'm probably going to start on there maybe October, November, December this year later on, and then maybe drift back onto bundies if I can get another winter ticket on there. So there we have it. That's what I've been up to, and I'll let you know what's been going on next time we speak.